In our last episode, we tracked down a hallucinogen gas canister and a stealth boy to assemble the Phantom device, a consumable that frenzies nearby enemies and renders us completely invisible, allowing us to slink away. We then went to the White Spring Resort and stumbled into the ruins of the Presidential Cottage to retrieve Grant's saber, a Civil War-era sword used by President Grant, from a display case as a base from which to craft the Blade of Bastet. But there is one piece remaining in the Mistress of Mysteries regalia, and that is the voice of Set. Set was the Egyptian god of violence, storms, chaos, and disorder. What exactly will this voice of Set be? Well, Shannon Rivers gave us some clues while describing it to us. We know it's going to be a one-handed pistol, and the only weaponized pre-war technology that Kryptos could find was some sort of EMP research program being undertaken by the United States military at a secret intelligence base called Sugar Grove. So the pistol is going to have some sort of EMP effect. To complete this weapon, we have to travel to Sugar Grove and retrieve the EMP research. Sugar Grove lies in an area where we find the ruins of many pre-war satellite dishes. This was clearly a hotbed of United States intelligence. To find Sugar Grove, we can take Highway 104 east from the White Spring Resort, which was one of the last locations we visited. Now it's a much straighter shot to veer off the road about halfway there and cut across some hills. But a safer route is to follow Highway 104 east until it intersects with Highway 107, then take Highway 107 northeast. After a while, we'll find Sugar Grove appear to the left. But I tried to take the shortcut, and so I arrived at the secret facility from behind. Standing atop the hillside overlooking Sugar Grove, we find cars still parked in the parking lot, and even a stretch limo parked beside the building. So the people who worked here were here when the bombs dropped. Their remains are likely still inside. Jumping down, we can kill some rats. There are 2 bear-proof trash cans outside, right next to the back door. The back door is locked, and it can only be released by hacking the nearby Skill 0 locked terminal. Once hacked, we can open the door and head inside. We arrive at the top of a staircase. Heading down the stairs... we find our path south blocked, and the door to the west requires a key. Only black site guard key can unlock this door. Okay. And we can't squeeze through this crack. No buttons on the wall. Looks like we're stuck. Well, we'll have to come back if we ever find this key, but to infiltrate Sugar Grove, we have to head back outside. After killing another rat, we can go around to the northwestern side of Sugar Grove. Here we find a security check-in shack with more rats inside. There's a weapons workbench in here, which we can use to scrap down our junk, but we don't have to worry about it. There will be plenty of workstations we'll find deeper inside Sugar Grove. There's a box of 10mm ammunition on a crate, some fusion cells in a locker, and a 10mm pistol lying on top of the lockers. That's about it for the check-in station. Heading out, we see that someone has created a ramp using fallen logs and scrap wood, connecting the roof of this structure with the nearby ledge. Instead of heading through the front door, maybe we can climb up there. Next to some dumpsters, we see a concrete staircase that leads to a little concrete hut. The seal outside reads, Naval Radio Station, Sugar Grove. Inside the hut, we find a chemistry workbench, more lockers, and some steel scrap on a table. The hut is otherwise empty, but we can use the iron staircase attached to this hut to reach the roof. Here we find a ruined mattress, next to which are 2 boxes of .45 caliber rounds, a hunting rifle, and a Nuka-Cola. There's a duffel bag here, and it's just then that we get spotted by a Mr. Handy. We can take the ramp to the nearby ledge, and from here we get a better view of the roof. It looks like there's a crashed vertibird on the roof. There is another ramp nearby which we can use to gain access to the roof of the primary building. From here, we find a rubble ramp that leads deeper inside, but before we go down, let's finish exploring the rooftop. Taking the eastern staircase, we can climb up to the vertibird crash site, and it is an absolute mess. Hopping up on top of the vertibird, thankfully we don't find any human remains inside, but it would be easy to drop right through here to the building beneath, and I wanted to avoid that for now. To explore the rest of the roof, we can move south, where we find a circuit breaker lid. I don't know what this is for. I get the impression that this and other things we'll find inside are related to some other quest that takes place here. But it doesn't have a purpose for the quest we're on, or the lore we find inside. On a staircase to the east, we find a weapon mod blueprint plan. In my game, I found a plan for the hunting rifle precise .38 caliber receiver.
I'm going to kick your ass when I find you!
Sounds like we've got company. Heading up the stairs, we find a vertibird landing pad, and this helps explain why we find the crashed vertibird. The vertibird was landing here at Sugar Grove when the EMP shockwave from the nuclear detonations of 2077 likely knocked it out of the sky, causing it to crash. We find a wrecked elevator up here, but that's it for the rooftop of Sugar Grove. So retracing our steps all the way back to that ladder leading down to the rubble ramp, we can head inside. We arrive in a broken room, and just outside, we can get a sneak critical on a machine gun turret. But we are not alone. We have to put 2 Protectrons out of commission. With this entryway more or less clear, we can explore. This room is really empty. There's nothing behind the rubble ramp. Heading outside, we see a couple of offices on this top level and reception down below. Heading around to the front desk, we find a Mr. Handy. Before going behind the counter, we'll explore this elevated waiting area. There's a double door on the wall to the east next to the couches. This leads to a bit of a conference room. And here we find some pencils. Sugar Grove is an excellent place to hit if you need lead. You'll probably get more from gyms where you can find dumbbells, but pencils are a great source for crafting ammunition. Heading out, we'll go downstairs to the lobby level to make sure we didn't miss anything. We find 2 reception areas. Going behind the western desk, we see framed portraits, but all the terminals are ruined. Interestingly, we find detective case files. These aren't important as they might seem. It's just that the government employees working here were detectives working on a lot of cases, so we find these scattered all over. Speaking of scattered all over, Sugar Grove is one of the best locations in the game to hit for clipboards. Clipboards have springs, and springs are an essential crafting component for almost everything, ranging from guns to power armor. Viewers of my live stream know that when crafting my excavator power armor suit, it was springs, which was the thing I had to look out for more than anything. If you loot every clipboard here in Sugar Grove, you can walk away with in excess of 60 springs. Outside on the landing, we have to kill another Mr. Handy. We see one of the cars had driven up on these steps, and here we find another parking lot. We see evidence that people were frantically trying to drive away from this place, likely after the bombs hit. The cars are in disarray. We even see 2 stretch limos crashed into each other. But aside from a few containers, there's nothing much out here. So heading back upstairs, we can finally go behind the counter. Here we find some fans. Fans are another item we find in great quantities here. An excellent source of screws, also useful for weapons and power armor crafting. There's a duffel bag here, and then going south on the hallway, we find a small office. In the office, we only find a red toolbox. With that, we need to enter Sugar Grove proper, and to do so, we have to access the wall-mounted terminal by the door. It asks to verify our credentials, but it doesn't seem to be picky. We don't have any credentials to show, and yet we can still remotely control the door. With the door unlocked, we can head inside. We arrive in a well-lit hallway, not good for stealth. Creeping forward, we see a big double door leading to a huge office area. Talk about an open office plan. These guys were well ahead of their time. But before we can explore, we must take care of a wandering Protectron. And this is the mother lode. This open office has a dozen or more desks, each of which is covered in clipboards, pencils, and desk fans. Careful cherry picking will allow you to walk away with exactly what you need for that excavator power armor set, or for upgrading your T60 set, or for being able to repair your combat shotgun. There are a few private offices. The first one to the west from the entrance is nondescript, just small items of junk. The second one directly north of it contains piles and piles of chairs and desks. Looks like they were moving desks into this room for some reason. We see a blinking camera in a corner, but we can't interact with it. Why was that turned on? Moving back out to the open office, if we head to the middle, we find filing cabinets stacked in cardboard boxes filled with paper. And the message becomes clear. We see gas cans all over the place. The government employees working here were trying to burn documents when the bombs dropped. This might explain why we find the desks and chairs in that one room. They moved all the desks into there so they could have room for their bonfire. But this is a last resort, setting a fire inside a government building? I mean, that would have burned the entire building down. It must have happened after the bombs dropped. Maybe they thought that China had won, and they didn't want China to know what was going on here. Or maybe they didn't want the American people to know. On the eastern side of this room, we find two offices as well. The first one is small. We find a cooler and a skill level 1 locked floor safe. And the second one is in complete disarray. But this one also has a safe, a skill level 2 locked box safe. With the open office explored and all its clipboards taken, we can continue by heading north down the hallway. But something is tracking us. Our caution meter keeps appearing, but we don't see anyone. Though we do hear the voices of robots deeper inside. The end of this hallway is ruined. We see rubble and sparks flying in the staircase, so we need to find another way deeper inside. We'll start by heading into the first door on the left. This led to another conference room. We find a big table in the middle of the room with chairs laid about, but nothing much here. Going across the hall to the western side, we find another conference room that mirrors the last one. Heading out, going down the hall, we find a staircase to the left. The staircase takes us down 2 floors. At the bottom, we arrive in another lobby. Creeping to the north, we see that broken door that we found in the hallway of the rear entrance. So this is what was on the other side. We'll have to remember to go back there if we ever find the black site guard key. Something has found us, but I don't know what. Moving to the double doors to the east. Uh-oh. Ceiling mounted turret. I didn't want to let him dump lead into me, so moving west, we find a skill level 1 locked door. After picking it, we find a locked door that requires using the terminal on the wall. From inside this terminal, we can turn off the nearby turret. Okay, that saves ammunition. And open the door. Opening the sliding door, we find the turret turned off. Inside, we find an assault rifle lying on a table and the unarmed bobblehead. When words fail, there's always fists. When used, gain 25% damage with unarmed attacks for 1 hour. Wow, what a great bobblehead for unarmed players. With this back area explored, before we go through the double doors to the east, let's explore down this southern hallway. Heading down the hallway, we see a number of rooms to the left and right. I wanted to make sure these rooms were clear, so turning around, we can explore the room behind us, but no Protectron in here. Though we find more evidence of a hasty abandonment. Consoles tipped over, crates stacked up, and an entire pile of broken terminals lying in a corner. Gosh, what were they trying to hide? Tucked in the corner of this room is an archival dispenser, but I couldn't interact with it. This is another reason why I think that some other quest may take place here that I haven't done yet, because this device has nothing to do with the EMP research we are here to retrieve. Heading out, we can explore the room where we destroyed the Protectron, and here we find the Analyst's Terminal. Sugar Grove, Sig Int Analysis Division. Analyst Patricia Nunes. Our first option is to flip through her Sugar Grove intramail. And these are in chronological order. The first one, 922 Siphon Holotapes from C West Check to the Sig Int division of Sugar Grove. Project Siphon Holotapes are a strictly controlled resource. Under no circumstances are they to be issued to anyone ever without my direct approval. In addition to being highly classified, just one of these tapes is twice the annual budget of our entire division. What? How could one holotape be worth that much? If you check one of them out, the system will log it, and you'll be answering to me. Wow, those Siphon holotapes are a real valuable commodity. But why are they so expensive? In the next one, October 13th, 2077, disk write errors. From M. Sickle to all employees. Subject, disk write errors. We've had several reports of disk write errors this morning. It looks like we abruptly ran out of storage on our primary mainframe overnight. Until we can get this sorted out, I've brought a secondary tape drive online. Please reboot your terminals and everything should be working again. Whoa, how did their primary mainframe get full of data overnight? Let's keep reading to find out. Next, on October 21st, Project Siphon. From K. Lockhart to P. Noons. Subject, Project Siphon. Hey, Pat, I need a favor. I'm sure you've heard this story by now, but I had a little mishap in my lab last week, and I've wound up with too much data for the mainframe to process. So that's how the mainframe got full. I was wondering if I could borrow one of my old Siphon tapes just for the weekend. The general is expecting a report on Monday, and unless I can pull my data together, I'll never be able to analyze it in time. It would really mean a lot to me. So he wants to borrow one of those holotapes that's worth more than twice this entire division's annual budget? Yeah, good luck with that. And in the next one, regarding Project Siphon, looks like Lockhart got an answer from K. Lockhart to P. Noons regarding Project Siphon. Please, Pat, I'm begging you. My job's on the line here. McAllen isn't going to take any more excuses. Not once he's seen the bills I've run up. I have to have something to show him. Isn't there anything you can do? It's just for the weekend. I'll have it back to you by Monday, I promise. Tuesday at the latest. So P. Noons said no, and poor K. Lockhart sounds completely frantic. What was it that Lockhart was working on that produced so much data overnight? And why did he have to sift through all of it by Monday? What did the military need from him? Backing out of Sugar Grove Intramail, we can move on to Project Siphon. Here we find 3 options and we learn our characters' first names. Controlling Division SIGINT Analysis, P. Noons is Patricia Noons. K. Lockhart is Kyle Lockhart. Siphon holotapes available, 1 of 6. Wow, so there were 6 of these really expensive holotapes, but only 1 is left? Where did all the others go? And the first one, Project Siphon Overview. Developed by the Sugar Grove Advanced Research Projects Division, the Project Siphon Data Exfiltration holotape can scan a target network for data sources of interest, copy and compress that data with an average compression ratio of 200 to 1, and extract it for later analysis. So this was research to develop an espionage holotape that can scan and copy data on networks, Chinese networks, maybe even civilian networks, and then compress it. A 200 to 1 compression rate is mind-boggling. Due to cost, a very limited number of Project Siphon holotapes have been produced. Access is strictly limited to covert operations specialists of grade 5 or above with prior authorization. All access to the system must be logged. In the next one, Project Siphon Access Logs, June 14th. Siphon transferred to SIGINT. 6 of 6 tapes available. That same day, check out to I. Mitchell, 1 holotape. Later that day, check out to L. Smith, 1 holotape. 1 week later, check out to KU, 1 holotape. July 30th, I. Mitchell, missing in action. Siphon holotape number 1 presumed lost. Something tells me SIGINT is probably more upset about losing a holotape worth twice their annual budget than losing one of their agents, I. Mitchell. On August 4th, L. Smith returned a holotape, but then on August 16th, checked it back out again, bringing the total stock again down to 3 of 6. Neither Smith nor you ever returned their holotapes. Then on October 10th, M. Weems checked out 1, leaving 2 remaining, and then on September 10th, 2086, 9 years after the apocalypse, an unknown user checked out 1, leaving 1 remaining. Who could have checked it out? Who could have even known these holotapes existed? More still, in a post-apocalypse, who would have a need for one of these very expensive network scanning data compression holotapes? We know what happened to Mitchell, but whatever happened to Smith, Yu, and Weems and their holotapes? Why did they check them out to begin with? Why did they never return them? But there is 1 holotape remaining. Backing out of access logs, we can choose the option to dispense a Project Siphon holotape. Dispensing holotape done. Logging checkout failed. Error, unable to write to the log file. A disk write error occurred. Alright, so it won't be able to log that we've taken the holotape, but we do get it. There was indeed 1 left, and now there are none left. We might not have a need for this holotape now, but it may come in handy later. Backing out of Project Siphon, we can now explore analysis projects. But we get an error. Your security credentials have expired. Please contact your supervisor for authorization. Oh no. Taking a look at the Project Siphon holotape in our Pip-Boy, we see that it has 255.9 storage blocks free, and it's using a compression algorithm called CYPAX9. Now, to find a way to load up this thing with useful data. Before we leave, and if we turn off our flashlight, we see light glowing from a rubble pile at our feet. Here we find the automated call recording holotape, but it's blank. No matter what I did, I couldn't get it to play anything. I tried pressing play when I looted it, nothing. I opened it up in my Pip-Boy, tried playing it again, nothing. I tried loading it into the nearby terminal to play it directly from the terminal, nothing. I tried hopping out of my power armor to play it on my Pip-Boy, and then switching from projection mode to Pip-Boy mode, nothing. So I'm at a loss. I did make sure the volume was turned up, and as we'll see later, I was able to get other holotapes to work. But for some reason, this one didn't play anything. I don't know if it was intended, or if it's for some other quest. Heading out of the data analysis room, we can continue south down the hallway. Turning left, we find another ruined office, nothing in here. Going across the hall, we find a strange sight for an intelligence office like this. Bunk beds on the ground with boxes and boxes of records stacked against the wall. Maybe this is where the workers were stacking things before burning them in the middle of the open office. But we don't find anything else here, and that's the end of this hallway. The hallway ends at a solid wall. So, turning around, we can bypass reception to move east down the hallway. At the end, we can open another double door to enter a control room. At the top of this control room, we can take care of a few robots. With the robots destroyed, we see a door to either side. We'll start by turning north and going up some stairs. This brings us to some sort of workshop. To the left, we find a shelf with a charging laser sniper rifle on top. Next to this is a table with a paper note. I'm watching you. Johnson, you bonehead. I know you've been stealing my lunches. Did you honestly think it would go unnoticed in a facility that was literally built to watch and listen to everything? Hell, I'm the guy who designed our internal surveillance system. Pay me back double and return my plastic containers, or I'll report what you do in the bathroom to CDR Gould. Oh, okay, stealing lunches is pretty bad, but this guy was spying on people in the bathroom? I'm glad I never worked in a place like that. As we explore, we find other players running around. MAF 102 ran by, and Mr. Husky came to say hello. Continuing our search, we find an armor workbench here, great for breaking down our scrap, and a weapons workbench behind us. Moving east, we see an operations office with a window overlooking the primary intelligence floor. On the ground here is presumably the skeleton of the operator. And above him is a wall-mounted cabinet with a cap stash and a luck bobblehead. There's only one way to give 110%. When used, gain +2 luck for 1 hour. Might as well use it now, don't mind if I do. Nearby, we find a terminal and a console. Our friend Moff is using it at the moment. But at his feet, we find a drawer, and inside the drawer, a bunch of blank holotapes. We can loot as many of these as we want. On the other side of Moff, on the table, are more blank holotapes. Just tons and tons of blank holotapes. And in the trash can below, more blank holotapes. What were these doing here? We know that none of these are the Siphon holotapes, only 6 of those were made. Perhaps someone was trying to transfer too much data onto these blank holotapes, but since they weren't Siphon holotapes, they were filling up too quickly. To find out, let's inspect the nearby terminal. Sugar Grove Advanced Research Projects Division Chief Scientist Kyle Lockhart. Oh, so this was Lockhart's terminal. This was the guy that sent the message to Noons, begging her to let him borrow a Siphon holotape. And the stacks of blank holotapes now begin to make a bit more sense. After having read his messages to Patricia on her terminal, we find 2 options here. The first, Sugar Grove Intramail. These are also listed in chronological order. We'll start with October 9th, 2077, power use. From N. Greaves to K. Lockhart, subject power use. Hey Kyle, I'm seeing a big spike in the power draw from your lab. You running some kind of test over the weekend? I'd appreciate a heads up on this kind of thing. I've had to switch on a couple of auxiliary generators to keep up with demand. In the next one, 2 days later, mainframe storage. From M. Sickle to K. Lockhart, it looks like you have a runaway terminal process. Something is bloating one of your data files. It's chewing through storage fast. I don't want to interrupt your work, but if this keeps up, it's going to start interfering with operations. Do you want me to flip the breakers on your network circuits until you get this under control? What was Lockhart working on? Not even his colleagues knew. In the next one, regarding power use urgent, again, from N. Greaves to Kyle Lockhart. Kyle, these numbers are insane. I don't know what you're doing in there, but you've burned out 8 generators in 2 days. I've had to tap the civilian grid, and the transmission lines are close to maxing out. You know those reports of brownouts in Monongah? That's you. Your lab has a hard line into the base's power, so I can't just cut you off. If this keeps up, I'm gonna have to advise the general. The bill for this is going to be astronomical. The next one, 3 days later, disk write errors, is the same employee-wide intramail we read in the last terminal. But having read the previous entries here, we now understand that message better. Directly after this, on the same day, forward disk write errors from M. Sickle to Kyle Lockhart. Let me know when you get back from vacation. We really need to discuss your data storage needs. So Kyle left some program running on his terminal and then went on vacation? Not the most brilliant move. The next one, 4 days later, October 18th, Project Pulsar, from General T. McCallan to Kyle Lockhart. Director Lockhart, I've had several reports that Project Pulsar is consuming an excessive amount of Sugar Grove's resources. This facility is crucial to the ongoing war effort, and any interference in base operations is absolutely unacceptable. If you are unable to exercise proper discretion and judgment in your work, you will be replaced by someone who can. I will be conducting an on-site inspection on Monday, October 25th. At that time, I expect a full report on your research projects and an explanation of the recent incident. General Thomas McCallan. So Sugar Grove was working closely with the military, so much so that a general was concerned about what was going on here, and the project Kyle was working on was Project Pulsar. But what was Project Pulsar? 3 days later, 2 days before the bombs drop, October 21st, regarding Siphon holotape. We finally read Patricia Noon's response to Kyle, begging about the Siphon holotape. Look, Kyle, I'm sorry, but you dug your own grave on this one. Yes, we still have 2 Siphon tapes left, but I can't just loan them out for personal use. That was why they took the project from you in the first place, remember? And Kathy is so uptight about cost control that the system logs every interaction with them. If I were to try and sneak one out of the lab, they'd have my head. I'm sure you can find some other way to copy your data. At least blank holotapes are cheap, right? And that's why we see all the blank holotapes all over the place. Poor Kyle, desperately trying to offload all of his data. Backing out of Entramail, we can now explore research projects to find out exactly what Kyle was working on. In the first one, BR04 Project Locust. And wow, look at all of these. Sugar Grove sure was busy. Status, canceled. Objective, Project Locust is to develop a self-directed vertibot swarm capable of covertly accessing enemy installations, hacking into mainframe systems, and extracting data of interest. Results, engineering estimates indicate that vertibots equipped with Project Locust technology would be approximately the size of a consumer sedan, making covert actions by a swarm of such robots infeasible. Well, this explains why the project was canceled, and yet we know that their research got pretty far along, but that's a topic for another video another day. In the next one, CX-15 Siphon Data Exfiltration Program. Status, transferred. So this is what Patricia meant when she said that Kyle had been taken off the program. Siphon was transferred. Objective, Project Siphon is to develop an automated data exfiltration holotape capable of scanning hostile networks, detecting data sources of interest, compressing the data, and extracting it for later analysis. Results, Project Siphon achieved a successful data compression ratio of 200 to 1. Due to cost concerns with Siphon's iridium-infused magnetic tape, $15 million per holotape, and multiple personal use issues resulting in 2 lost holotapes, project oversight has been transferred to the Sugar Grove SIG-INT Analysis Division. 15 million per holotape? That's insane even by Fallout inflation standards. And it tells us that Sugar Grove only costs the government about $7.5 million per year. I don't know, that seems a bit cheap to me for an entire intelligence division. So, Siphon got transferred from Kyle's research division to Patricia's SIG-Int division because each holotape was too dang expensive and the research division kept losing them. Then afterwards, the research team was presumably given the Pulsar project. Let's find out when and what that was in the next one, RD-68 Barrier Radiation Suppression Field. Status canceled. Objective: Project Barrier is to develop an electromagnetic suppression field capable of dampening gamma radiation, providing a counter to radiation weapons, and enabling agents to operate in the aftermath of a tactical nuclear strike. Holy cow! That would be very useful right now. Almost as if they predicted it happening. Results: although the initial bench tests were promising, the Project Barrier field emitter requires exponentially more power to operate at scale. At current specifications, shielding a 20-foot area requires a power supply equal to 3 industrial nuclear reactors, making field deployment of the technology challenging. Yes, I can see that, but I wonder if we'll ever have access to this technology. Maybe if we have fusion reactors at our camp, or maybe to protect a settlement. Interesting to think about. In the next one, KM41 Spotlight, Neutrino Pulse Emitter. Status canceled. Objective: Project Spotlight is to develop a neutrino pulse emitter capable of remotely scanning enemy installations and reconstructing an internal map of the facility. Results: a field test of the Spotlight emitter was conducted on a civilian office building on June 22nd. Subsequent news reports suggest that most of the resulting casualties were caused by a sudden mass psychotic episode resulting from the scan, instead of the scan itself. Although Spotlight technology has potential military applications, its usefulness as a covert operations tool appears to be limited. Oh no! They tested it on a civilian office? I can only hope that none of those casualties were fatalities. And in the final one, EX-72 Pulsar, EMP weapons development. Hey there! I think this is what we came for. Status active. Project Pulsar is to develop tactical electromagnetic pulse weapons for use by agents in disabling or destroying turrets, robots, and other electronic security systems. Fantastic, the data is still here. Inside, we find 2 options. In the first, research logs. Please select a log to view. The research was new for Kyle's team. Looks like he started it at the beginning of October. In the first log, October 4th, 4 freaking tests. That's all we've accomplished today. 4 tests. Having the robot fabricator in the lab helps, but our test cycles still take far too long. After every test fire, we have to break down the robot, analyze the damage, reset and recalibrate the weapon, and wait for the fabricator to assemble a new robot. At the rate we are going, we might have some results in the next century or 2. Interesting problem. Let's see if Kyle found a solution in the next one, 3 days later on October 7th. Got it! I found a way to automate the testing process. I can set up the fabrication pod to assemble a robot, pipe the fabricator's steam release into a hydraulic actuator to trigger the weapon, and then have the fabricator disassemble the robot and save off the results. Rinse, repeat. The whole cycle takes about 8 minutes. I can set this baby up to run while I'm on vacation next week and come back to a fresh set of data to analyze. Oh no, Kyle! Oh, so this is what he had running while he was on vacation. But he made a mistake. It consumed too much power, and we already know it produced way too much data. In the next one, much later, on October 18th, that must have been one nice long vacation. I wanted data? Well, I've got data. Somewhere in there, I'm sure there's a usable result, but it's buried in 58 tape drives of steaming hot crap. 58 drives! That cute little automated test routine has eaten all the data storage on the base, enough power to run Watoga for a year, and more raw materials than the 81st Armor Division. And I have to dig a golden needle out of this crap in less than a week? I'm so screwed. And this, I think, is the point at which Kyle remembered his previous Siphon project, and he messaged his good pal Patricia, hoping for a Siphon holotape so he could take it home and work on this problem over the weekend so that he could meet his deadline, but Patricia wouldn't play ball. In the final log, October 21st, nothing. I've got nothing. The test data is fragmented across the mainframe, and the system can't handle the volume. I can't even access it all, much less analyze it. I keep hoping I can convince Patent Analysis to give me one of the Siphon tapes. If I could just get all of the data in one place, maybe I could come up with something, anything. General McCallan is expecting a report on Monday. God, what am I gonna do? Well, poor Kyle never got to sift through his data. 2 days later, the bombs drop and his world ends. But you know what? I think I know someone who can sift through this data. A little former DIA mainframe now called Kryptos. And it just so happens that we have a siphon holotape. The last one in Sugar Grove that we got from Patricia's terminal. Let's see what we can do here. Backing out of research logs and into research data. Full size, 46,751 blocks. Warning, Research Project X72 has exceeded its allotted storage capacity. 46,751 out of 768 blocks. Data file fragmentation may have occurred. Please transfer your data to an external storage device before beginning analysis. If instead we try to download the project data now, please return to the main menu and insert a blank formatted holotape to begin the download. Now, we can experience Kyle's pain firsthand if instead of the siphon holotape, we load one of those blank holotapes we found scattered around his workstation. If we do, the program begins resuming the copy operation, but it stops at copying fragment 4 of 183. We then get an error. A disk read error occurred. Please remove and reinsert the holotape. That's just telling us that the holotape is already full, so we need to insert the siphon holotape, which has a much larger capacity. Backing out and scrolling through our very long list of holotapes by now, we can stop at the Project Siphon holotape and load it. Once loaded, we can click to download the data, identifying target data, Project Pulsar. Done. Performing compression analysis, expected compressed file size, 233.76 blocks. Done. It then compresses the data, copies it, and the exfiltration process is complete. We now have the Project Pulsar data on our holotape, the data that Kryptos can now use to develop an EMP weapon for us. So we've got what we came for, but before we leave and head back to Riverside Manor, let's finish exploring Sugar Grove, because we still have so many unanswered questions, like how do we get our hands on some of the canceled research projects? Who was the unknown user who came here in 2086 and took the second siphon holotape? And why was the general so concerned about this place? Are generals usually so concerned with what goes on at a government research facility? Before going down to the intelligence floor, we can cross the hall to open the door to the south. This leads to an office, and inside, we find another archival system access point in the corner. But turning around, we find the project director's terminal. But before we can access it, we get attacked by an assaultron. God, that guy just sort of came out of nowhere. With the assaultron destroyed, we can finally access the project director's terminal. Director CDR Whitney Gould. So this was the director of the entire facility. Exploring his intramail, we see very different messages going all the way back to June 16th. Mining chatter. From F. Spinner to W. Gould. First, I want to apologize for misunderstanding you. When you said there was an issue with miners at the Rusty Pick, I thought you were referring to underage drinking. On a related note, there actually is a problem with underage drinking at the Rusty Pick, but I now know that's not what you meant. Okay. A mistake I think could only have been made over a telephone call. The new recordings we took seem to indicate pretty standard anti-automation stuff. A few calls for unionization and that sort of thing. Seems mostly harmless, nothing to worry about yet, but I think we should keep an ear to the ground, just in case. With your approval, I'd like to get a guy in there and pull an undercover op. Thoughts? So the SIGINT division was spying on the miners who were protesting the automation of West Virginia? We'll be following up on this story when we tackle the Garahan Mining Company. We got a slight taste of it when we explored Lexington, and we found all of the protest signs from people protesting the automation of government. So West Virginia was really trying to automize everything, from the private sector to the public. And the next one, August 9th, 2077, Mama Dolce's, from J. Messier to W. Gould. I've been following this place ever since I sent you that report about the strange overseas wire transfers we traced coming out of there. I sent word of it to one of the boys back in DC, and you'll never guess what came back. After bouncing around a few shell companies all around the world, the money finally landed in China. Consider this my formal request for a full surveillance op of the Mama Dolce's facility in the interest of national security. I bet dollars to donuts we turn up a den of Chinese spies. So the government knew that China was working out of Mama Dolce's. This is a bit of a spoiler for those of you who haven't seen my video on Mama Dolce's, which you can watch here. In the next one, on September 8th, surveillance equipment from M. Cortez to W. Gould. Do we already have some equipment out by Monongah? I was out there setting up some surveillance for the mission you assigned me, and I came across a device that looked suspiciously like one of ours. We didn't have something going on there and forget about it, did we? The thing looked like it was freshly installed. I didn't end up installing anything because I wanted to clarify the situation with you first. So the SIG Int division of Sugar Grove was installing this surveillance equipment domestically. They were spying on American citizens, and it looks like someone else may have been using their own technology. We haven't come across this yet. We'll have to head on over to Monongah in a future episode to see if we can track this down. In the next one, September 20th, Grafton Communists. From G. Hartley to W. Gould, the strikes continue in Grafton. Don't these people understand how important steel production is to the war effort? I'd like permission to monitor the situation more closely. It wouldn't surprise me to find a communist or two in the midst of this mess. It's in the Navy's best interest to fix this situation ASAP. And I can see why. What are new battleships made of? Steel. We don't even have enough intel to know if whomever's organizing the strikes is the same as the one who sabotaged the mill with whatever was in that powder. You authorize the tools I need, I guarantee I'll get to the bottom of it. So another reference to something we haven't discovered yet. An explosion at a mill near Grafton? Steel labor strikes? Grafton communists? Another topic for another video. In the next one, October 7th, Huntersville. From S-Glass to W. Gould. With all due respect, what's the meaning of shutting down the Huntersville op? Are we taking orders from the Army now? A complete media blackout, I get. But covert surveillance is literally what we do. What's going on there that is so secret that we don't have eyes and ears on it? Viewers of my live stream know exactly what was going on at Huntersville because we uncovered the deadly secrets while exploring it during the primary quest. But again, that's a topic for another video. Another day. 6 days later, the Free States. From B. Jameson to W. Gould. Here's the latest on the Free States. After the secession, we were picking up loads of activity, but they've been pretty quiet ever since the real interesting ones, like Blackwell and Clay, locked themselves up in their bunkers last month. For what it's worth, we managed to infiltrate a few of their lines of communication, but again, they mostly seem to be staying put and waiting for bombs to drop, as if the enemy actually has the guts to pull a move like that on American soil. I'll update you if anything noteworthy happens. As far as I'm concerned, they can sit there and stew as long as they want, or at least until we can free up the resources to deal with them good and proper. This is alluding to some of the activity going on in the background for the primary plot of Fallout 76. We'll learn more about the secessionists, including Samuel Blackwell, a senator turned traitor, and the Free States who predicted the apocalypse and holed themselves up in their bunkers when I cover the primary plot of the game in an upcoming episode. But of course, it doesn't even bear repeating that when it came to the end of the world, the Free States were right. The next day, we see that same site-wide entramail about disk write errors, and that's it for entramail. So backing out of this, we find a new project that apparently only the division director, CDR Whitney Gould, had access to. Project Somnus. Somnus was the name of the ancient Roman god of sleep. I wonder what this could be about. Error. That's convenient, unless the director deleted information on Project Somnus when the end of the world finally occurred. We already know they had at least a short period of time to respond after the end of the world. We saw the piles of boxes and gas canisters in the open office. Perhaps Whitney deleted every mention of Project Somnus from this terminal. But what was it? And why did only the director have access to it? To find out, we'll head out down the stairs and turn east to explore the primary intelligence floor. On the ground, we find a seal. Sugar Grove Sigint Audi Wide Take. Hear, see, be silent. We see a staircase down to the intelligence floor, and 2 doors beside us, one to the north and one to the south. We'll start by going south, and this leads to a maze of data storage devices. These must be the data storage devices that Kyle used up while he was on vacation and his program was running. The thing is an absolute maze. I won't bore you by showing you every nook and cranny, but in about the center of the maze, we find a control station. Here we find a cooler and some scrap. The Fallout 76 official strategy guide tells us that a magazine should be here, but I actually came back twice, weeks apart, to this location trying to find it, and I couldn't find it. If we move to the southeast corner, we find a cap stash on one of the data recorders. In the stall directly next to this is a skill level 2 locked floor safe. And in the stall directly next to this, in the southeasternmost corner of this maze, we find a drawer lying on top of one of the cabinets. If we sneak behind it inside the drawer, we find the black site guard key. We found it! This is the key to the locked door that we found by going through the back entrance at the beginning of the video. We'll take it and head that way after we finish exploring the intelligence floor. Then, if we explore in the furthest southwest corner of the maze, we find a melee bobblehead on the ground. It's important to do business up close and personal. When used, gain 20% damage with melee weapons for 1 hour. Man, this place really likes unarmed and melee characters. What, no rifleman love? There are a few more scrap containers, and that's about it for the maze. So heading out, we can cross the platform north before heading down. Here we find 2 doors. The western door leads to a restroom. Here we find military fatigues and 1 randomized military hat. This is a green bandana. The second time I came back, I found a beret. In the lockers, we find a cooler, and in the locker I found an HH3A capacitor, a junk item that'll become important later, and a first aid kit on top of the lockers. Leaving, we pass a shaving station and a chem box on top of it. Here I got a disease cure, and that's it for the bathrooms. So heading out, we can then turn left into the next room, which appears to be another meeting room. We can again walk away with a slew of wonderful clipboards, my new favorite thing in the whole wide world, and when done, we can finally head down to explore the intelligence floor. The intelligence floor is split into 3 levels. We'll start by exploring the first one. Most of these terminals are completely destroyed, but again, they're wonderful spots for finding springs, screws, and lead. Many of the stations are labeled by signs, but many of the signs are also broken. One says power grid. We already understand why power was so important here at Sugar Grove. We'll finish this top level by exploring a makeshift kitchen and break room to the south. Lots of coffee cups and a sink. These working stiffs do love their coffee. And then we'll take the stairs down to the second level. Here we find our first working terminal, the SIGINT system terminal. Hopping out of power armor to read it. External network active. System connection secure. We find 2 options. The first, to run the orbiculum diagnostic check. Accessing device control hubs, we find 4 hubs, north, south, east, and west. Of the listening devices that SIGINT installed before the war, only 8 of the 15 planted to the north are working. 12 of the 21 planted in the southern hub are working. 20 of the 24 planted in the eastern hub are working, and only 11 of the 16 planted to the west are still working. I'm surprised so many are working at all after a nuclear apocalypse. But this entry tells us that the name of the government surveillance system was Orbiculum, which of course means crystal ball. Backing out of this one, we can now explore stored documents. In the first one, August 19th, external contractors. From the director to all. Subject, external contractors. In the coming weeks, you may encounter 1 or more external contractors being escorted to or from the lower levels of the facility. These men and women are a part of Captain West's Somnus initiative, and as such, are not to be interacted with by anyone but their handlers or the facility's commanding officers. Should you ever find any of these contractors without an escort, it is your responsibility to immediately inform the base Marines of the contractor's location. Under no circumstances should you attempt to detain or communicate with these individuals. CDR Gould. What? Well, at last we understand that the back entrance we tried to access at the very beginning is where the director was undertaking his Somnus initiative. But the way he worded this employee-wide mail is very weird. He kept referring to the people as contractors, but the contractors were part of the Somnus Initiative. Exactly what kind of contractors were working on a governmental intelligence initiative? And each was assigned a handler. That's a weird word to use for a simple government escort. And you were forbidden from talking to them? But why? In the next one, on September 10th, Intel Preservation Directive. From the director to all personnel. This is a reminder, any and all collected intelligence must be documented and deposited into the facility's archival system. If you have not yet received your training in use of the archives, please contact your immediate superior, who will register you for the next available class. CDR Gould. This, I believe, is related to another quest that takes place here, which we'll cover later. In the next one, over a month later, on October 18th, Unauthorized Communication Policy. From the director to all Sugar Grove personnel. The work we do here is of an incredibly sensitive nature. For this reason, all communications with or destined for sources outside our facility must first be cleared by either myself or Captain West. Requests for information or project status from any outside sources, regardless of the rank claimed by the inquiring individual, must be forwarded directly to us. Anyone responding to such messages will be disciplined. You don't want to be the one who lets our intelligence fall into enemy hands, do you? CDR Gould. Man, they really wanted whatever they were doing here to be kept a secret. And in the final one, Archives Index, many of the first ones were regarding Citizen Edgar Arson. They were monitoring his union attendance rolls. They then had to get a surveillance warrant. They monitored his movements in August of 2075, archived final documentation the same year. We then find his arrest warrant, and shockingly 2 months later, a death certificate. Why was he arrested? Did he die in prison? Was he killed in prison? Then, horrifyingly, directly beneath that, Notice of Adoption, Martin Arson. Notice of Adoption, Olivia Arson. Both of these events took place only a month later, after their father's death. Who adopted his children? Did the government adopt them? If they did, why? Why did the government need his children? Was he killed so that the government could take his children? Directly beneath this, we find archives on Evelyn Aberdeen. She requested a Chinese visa in February of 2075. Barely a month later, the government obtained a surveillance warrant to spy on her. But that's where the archives end. And that's it for the SIGINT system terminal. There's a cooler behind us, and then right next to this is the Cryptozoids desk. The terminal's blasted out, but we do find 3 holotapes, and the first one, Cryptid Sighting, October 25th, Wendigo.
Beverly Solomon, Cryptid Analyst, 102577. Wendigo Witness Report. Ooh, this is a spooky tale. Okay, so this is my own personal sighting. I was up at the ski lodge this past week, enjoying some well-deserved R&R. I guess I can never really be off the clock, though, because I happened to see something hunched on the slopes ahead of me. I thought it was some old coat, you know? I was moving pretty fast, so I was just trying to avoid it. Anyhow, it just unfurls as I get close. Must have been 10 feet tall, with just all skin and bones like a dead dog. It had a deer's skull cracked open in its hand, a fresh kill it was eating. And as I go by, I get this powerful cold feeling through my bones. I thought to myself, you know, Bev, you really lucked out getting that tattoo before coming out here on this trip. I can't imagine what kind of things I want to see next.
Okay, so a pre-war Wendigo sighting. A bit of an issue for those who have gotten far along on the main quest, considering we find a progenitor Wendigo and entire lore explaining how he became a Wendigo later on, but then again, they have been rumored to exist for a long time, so anyway, moving on to the next cryptid sighting, the Grafton Monster, September 27th.
Beverly Solomon, Cryptid Analyst, 92777. Grafton Monster Witness Report. This is from one of those spelunkers that roam the hills looking for abandoned mining claims. Can you imagine? Well, the classic 4-foot wide shoulders, headless profile, deep sonorous cry. They got a good glance at it. The witness didn't know what it was, but the description is very clear. It came out when she started playing mouth harp, apparently. I'm gonna go out to look. Maybe that sound is the key.
So the Grafton monster likes the sound of a mouth harp. Is it just the sound of a mouth harp or any musical instrument? And in the final one, cryptid sighting Snallygaster, October 4th.
Beverly Solomon, cryptid analyst, 10477. Snallygaster witness report. Another interesting tidbit from the locals, this time about the Snallygaster. This one's for you, Teddy. Alright, so the witness overheard a loud, shrieking sound and was rushed by a dark shape in the woods. It was, leaping at them, or maybe flying. They took shelter in an old German settler's barn, and it couldn't get at them, which is what really interested me. It screamed and hollered outside all night until dawn, but they knew the 7-pointed star on the wall outside would keep them safe. Yikes. Guess I know what my next tattoo's gonna be.
What? Okay, well, we understand why she made that tattoo reference in the first one. She got a 7-pointed star tattoo, which she believed kept her safe from the Snallygaster, and then she presumed it kept her safe from the Wendigo she saw later. But was it the barn that kept her safe, or was the Snallygaster really afraid of the 7-pointed star? And why? At the end of this row on the second level, we find another holotape, Charleston Herald exclusive, The Motherlode.
I'm William Breyer, investigative reporter for the Charleston Herald. I'm currently standing just outside the security fencing of one of several Hornwright industrial sites that have cropped up around the area in recent months. I'm here tonight to try and get some answers about what has become known in certain circles as the Motherlode Project. Could this be the answer local mining families have been looking for? A series of new mining projects that could reinvigorate the local economy. Or as the environmental groups have suggested, could these be a fresh set of toxic disposal sites, poisoning the ground beneath our feet? At the very least, according to local experts, the area's recent increase in seismic events can almost certainly be tied to these sites. And now I'm here to see for myself what's really going on. I've just made my way up to a small gap in the first line of fencing. The security here is intense. Barbed wire, armed guards. Feels like a war zone. I'm making my way over a small ridge and Mother of God! Ground shaking and... Oh my God. What is that?
Hey, you! This is private property. Shit, it's that reporter. Jesus. He's got a gun!
Gun? Wait, this isn't a...
This gives us some amazing foreshadowing about the secrets we will uncover at Hornwright Industries. Remember in a previous video, I talked a little bit about the Garahan Mining Company and their bitter rival, Hornwright Industries. We will fully explore their headquarters, their other mining sites, and discover exactly what it was that reporter Bill Breyer saw and what got him killed after I complete my series on minor miracles. On the wall in the center of the room, we find a map of West Virginia and a DEFCON meter. On the map, we see a number of points of interest lit. I think these may be the locations where SIGINT had installed the surveillance devices that they were using to spy on the American people. There are a few more SIGINT terminals down here, but they all say the same thing. And you watched me loot the End of Dungeon steamer trunk. So that's it for this section of Sugar Grove. But we found the black site guard key in the data storage maze. So heading outside, climbing the roof, and then jumping down to the rear of the building, we can open the back door. And heading down the hallway, sure enough, the key fits. Heading down the stairs, we open a door. This looks like a check-in table. We see a blue double door to the left and a long hallway to the right. Going down the long hallway, the first door to the right is another hallway. I have a hunch this does a complete loop, so we'll go here first. Heading down this hallway, we have to kill some rats, and then we find a security gate that we can unlock using the black site guard key. Inside we find most of the shelves bare, though we do find a fusion core and a cooler. Beneath the cooler under the desk is a skill level 2 locked floor safe. Heading out of the storage room, we find a staircase to the east, which goes down to another level. We can go north or south. Going north for now, we find a cell, locked by cell key B2RS. A cell? Continuing north, we find some lockers, and on a crate nearby, we find the repair bobblehead. Why go down with the ship when you can try to fix it? When used, fusion cores last 30% longer for 1 hour. Might as well use that right now. Near to the lockers is another security gate, but this appears to be some sort of shower with absolutely no privacy. Maybe a hazmat shower or a chemical shower. This corner then turns west. Here we find another cell. Can only be locked by key V5XF. Continuing west, another cell. Can only be unlocked with key W9FZ. Going further west, the path then turns south. And sure enough, we arrive back at that hallway, so it did do a complete loop. We see the staircase going back up to the left, the check-in table to the right, and we notice a skill 1 locked wall safe, which we can pick for the rewards. Now to open the big blue double doors, which we can unlock with the black site guard key. We arrive in some sort of medical lab. Broken first aid kits beneath x-rays to the left, empty boxes on shelves to the right, a tipped over cart in the middle, stretchers behind privacy screens and lockers to the south, and a table in the very middle of the lab with microscopes and lots of cutting utensils. We find a refrigerator on a trolley next to an ice machine. God, what were they trying to keep cool? Beds and a wheelchair. Were they operating on people? Clearly experimenting on people? People whom they were holding in cells? Oh no, what were they doing here? To continue, we open the door to the east, which leads us to a living room, complete with green wallpaper. But upon further inspection, it's no cozy living room. What's this? We find a chair, complete with wrist detaining restraints and needles pointing at the subject's temples. This is straight out of A Clockwork Orange. And it was sitting directly before a television. In the next pod, we find a similar scene with more strange machinery with needles pointing at the seat. Behind them, they've got coffee and drinking water. Well, at least they had that. And in the third pod, another similar brainwashing/programming scene. We find a hole in the wallpaper to the south. This leads to an observation office. We find a revolver and .44 ammunition on a table, a bookshelf with a battered clipboard, and cell key B2RS. At last, we can explore one of those cells. We'll check that out in a minute. Turning around, we can loot a metal box, and here, in the middle of a console, we find the director's terminal, locked with a skill level 0 lock, classified Project Somnus. In the first one, general notes, need to cut down indoctrination and reprogramming time. Current averages are at about 3 days. If we could get this average down to 1 day or a matter of hours, it would greatly reduce suspicion. Until then, we will need to continue to rely on individuals with no immediate family. And suddenly the pieces fall into place. The contractors coming down here, or people being indoctrinated and programmed? The orphans we read about on the archival index. The children of Edgar Arson, who was arrested and then killed while imprisoned, were perfect for this program with no immediate family. That's why they were adopted, likely adopted by the state so they could be used for the Somnus Project. Despite our original expectations, individuals with lower mental aptitude are actually worse for the program than more intelligent individuals, because we still need to work within the confines of the human brain. Smarter people are better able to carry out orders without error, and can improvise to occlude their purpose if they are caught. Factors other than intelligence seem to influence malleability. After what happened to Somnus Agent AJM-1068, it is evident we need to speed up our progress on the ability to deprogram individuals. So they were brainwashing or programming people to turn them into agents? What were they using these agents for? But ultimately planning to deprogram them? What, and then reintroduce them back into society? That sounds like a recipe for disaster. And it's here our worst fears are likely confirmed. This agent's name was AJM-1068. AJM Arson J. Martin. The same boy they turned into an orphan by executing his father in captivity. They then brainwashed, turned into an agent, and then that agent disappeared or was killed in action. Something horrible happened. Next, we find notes on specific agents. Agent DMS-736. The fact that Agent DMS-746 is a local park ranger should prove advantageous in his efforts to move around and not raise suspicion. However, I believe he may be a bit hard of hearing. He understands orders more or less, but doesn't always accurately recognize voices. I'm worried he may hear an order from someone not associated with the program, but who sounds similar and divulge classified information. Note, September 21st, 2077, Agent DMS-746 did not return in a timely manner after previous round of collection. Undercover agents were dispatched to find him. DMS-746 showed signs of confusion, likely due to a sustained concussion, but no recollection of his activities. We've decided to decommission him for now, but keep him under close surveillance for any expected issues. We find a button here that says dispensing holotape, but when we access this terminal entry, we did not get a holotape, and this button doesn't appear to work. Also of note, this was about Agent DMS-736, but in the entry, they describe him as Agent DMS-746. Frustratingly, the next one is also called Agent DMS-736, but again, they describe him as Agent DMS-746. This appears to be a huge bug. It's a copy and paste of the previous agent entry with the first paragraph duplicated. So we've got a bit of a bug here. Moving on to Agent HGR-242, exhibits signs of resilience to reprogramming. Double next session. If she still manages to resist, a partial wipe may be in order. Wait a minute. The Institute were able to wipe synth minds because they programmed those minds using software. But the US government before the war found a way to wipe human minds? So straight out of Men in Black. We can always drop her outside her home and make it look like a late-night bender. Her propensity to overindulging in alcohol is one of the reasons we chose her, for this exact reason. And in the next one, Agent AJM-1068. This was the agent that, quote, something happened to, as we learned when we read the general notes here. Likely Martin Arson, the orphan boy. And sure enough, we learned that AJM-1068 was a boy. I can no longer in good conscience recommend the Somnus program for use in non-adult individuals, even though AJM-1068 is an orphan and a frequent runaway. There have been signs that reprogramming a developing mind may lead to adverse, lifelong consequences. So the director was perfectly fine with experimenting on adults, kidnapping them, wiping their minds, etc. He's even fine with arresting a man who happened to be part of a union, killing him while in captivity, and adopting his children, but he draws the line at brainwashing those children. I see. A real upstanding moral man here. The good news is that it's highly effective. The bad news is that it works too well, and the subject has little ability or desire to do anything but follow explicit orders, which is fine for robots, but robots don't need to eat, sleep, or perform other biological functions. I've called for an acceleration of the deprogramming initiative. Is he trying to hint at what might have happened to Martin Arson? If children, when programmed, need to be reminded to do their basic bodily functions, could it be that young Martin starved to death while under the influence of their programming? Is that what happened to him? But whatever happened to his sister, Olivia Marson? We never find out from this terminal. And the next one, Agent EFB825. We need to take better care during the reprogramming process not to inhibit basic self-preservation instincts. Agent EFB825 came back bleeding, covered in lacerations, and missing an arm after an apparent bear attack, blissfully unaware that anything was wrong. While it's good to know that this could have interesting implications for frontline military forces, it does us no good to have a trail of blood leading back to our door. Agents were sent to scrub the trail to make sure no one traces this back to us. Oh, I see. So the focus is the trail of blood leading to your door. That's the problem. Not the fact that your agent is now missing an arm. The agent you brainwashed. Glad you got your priorities straight there, buddy. And in the final one, Agent SEL-1249. SEL-1249 is a self-described avid hiker, so no one questions her frequent disappearances. We can use her to collect data from the wooded mountainous areas nearby. On a trial basis, we have been experimenting with inserting a wild range of combat tactics, mostly revolving around martial arts. SEL-1249 has shown much promise in accepting these techniques, completely unaware to her conscious self. Indeed, it appears SEL-1249 managed to foil a bank robbery by employing hand-to-hand combat with no recollection of the incident. Luckily, the official newsprint story attributes it to a sudden instinctual rush of adrenaline triggered by the stress of the situation. Oh my God. and this is the United States of America. Makes you wonder, if this is how America acquired their secret agents, exactly how did China acquire theirs? And we better understand those chairs and TVs with the needles and devices sticking out of them. Those were the indoctrination chairs. That's how they brainwashed their agents. Moving into the next room, we find a table with a 10mm pistol and some ammunition. And on a pushcart nearby, we find 3 sets of keys. Key V5XF, B9AX, and A6KH. It's time to find out what's on the other side of these cell doors. Heading back to the cells, the first one we find still requires a key. Did we not get them all? This is W9FZ. Well, moving on for now, the cell right next to this is V5XF. Inside, we find a pitiful little cell, a dirty mattress on the ground, a toilet and sink right next to it. Is this how they cared for their own secret agents? They put them in tiny, unhygienic cells? Moving out, we can unlock the next cell with key B2RS. But inside, we find it completely blank. Though this one has 2 sinks, one of which is directly above the toilet, making the toilet impossible to use. But nothing here. We can unlock the cell right next to it with key B9AX. And here at least we find something. Some fancy lads and pork and beans with a chem box nearby. No pictures, no photographs. Nothing beautiful, nothing human. And in the next cell, we can open this with key A6KH. But this one is also completely barren. Nothing inside. But we are still missing 1 key. We've unlocked 4 cells, but there are 5 in total. Retracing our steps to try and find this key, we don't see any more on the shelf in the observation room or on top of that stack of boxes. This room was a bit of a kitchen and food preparation room. We find a chem box on a wall next to a cooler, and a skill level 2 locked safe by a bunk bed. Going north out of this room just brings us back to the hallway with the cells, and here we complete the entire loop. The key we are missing is cell key W9FZ. Now, when I recorded this footage during my live stream, I spent probably half an hour looking for this key and I never found it. But many days later, when I was doing another quest, I was exploring the ruins of Huntersville. I won't spoil the story of Huntersville here. It's suitably horrible. But inside Huntersville, we find the ruins of a 2-story house with a red star. The staircase inside is complete rubble. But there's a fallen tree in the backyard that we can use as a ramp to reach the 2nd floor. If we hop down from the tree and we examine the ruined bed, we see a ring of keys lying beneath it. This is cell key W9FZ. And when we understand the story of what happened here at Huntersville, we realize exactly how horrible it is to find this key here. Without spoiling the story of Huntersville, it means that the United States government was going into American towns and kidnapping people whom, for reasons they refused to share, they deemed were not suitable for society. They took the person who lived in this home back to Sugar Grove to program using Somnus, and they dropped the key to her cell here. Back at Sugar Grove, with the final key in hand, we can unlock the door to cell W9FZ. For our efforts, we find 1 cap stash and a chem box, though I think the rewards are randomized. A previous time I came here, I peered through the window to see 2 cap stashes, one here by the chem box and another in the sink, but this time I only found 1. With that, we fully explore Sugar Grove and uncover all of its horrifying secrets. But we leave with one question yet unanswered. Who was it that came in 2086 to take the other siphon holotape? And what did that person do with it? But we don't have time to think about that now. Right now, we have to finish our quest. Heading back to Riverside Manor, we can move to Frederick's lab to access his fabricator. If we navigate to Fabrication Services and choose Voice of Set, we see verifying components failed. Error, you lack the components to fabricate this item. The required components are 1 experimental weapons research data. If your data is a holotape, please insert the holotape and upload the data for analysis. And that's exactly what we have. So, backing out, we can load the Project Siphon holotape from Sugar Grove, upon which we downloaded and compressed the Project Pulsar data. Once loaded, we read holotape contents, Project Siphon exfiltration program, and Project Pulsar research data. We can then choose to upload the data. Uploading compressed data done. Unpacking data done. Running automated analysis done. Fabrication Services, Voice of Set, now available. Once the data is analyzed, we can back out, then go to Fabrication Services, and finally choose Novice, Voice of Set. With that, we complete the quest Prototypical Problems, and we get the Voice of Set. Like the Garb of Mysteries and the Blade of Bastet, the Voice of Set is a level 25 weapon. At level 25, it does 60 base damage. And like the Blade of Bastet, we can upgrade it at any weapon's workbench every 10 levels. At 35, we can upgrade the damage to 66 damage. At level 45, we can upgrade it to having 72 damage. It takes 44 caliber ammunition, has a fire rate of 6, and the glow sight on it gives it a range of 84. But because this is a special weapon, we can't upgrade it. So after crafting it, what you see is what you get. It doesn't even show up in the Modify interface if you have it in your inventory when accessing a weapon's workbench. It looks like every other 44 pistol. There's no visual indicator that some EMP weapon has been installed on this thing, which is a little disappointing. I'd love to be able to visually see exactly what data the fabricator got from the holotape to give this thing electrical damage versus robots. Despite not having a star by the name of the item, it does have a legendary effect, and we can take it to Dire Chemical where there are a lot of robots to test it out. I found that the weapon did all right. It doesn't deal a huge amount of damage. There are plenty of weapons in the game even before perks are considered that just do way more base damage. And I don't know if the legendary effect can make up for that. It's alright. I think the Voice of Set can be a useful weapon in specific circumstances for particular builds. Honestly, I would really only use this weapon as my primary weapon if I was doing a Mistress of Mystery playthrough, role-playing as the Mistress of Mystery. And then, not because I would be fighting a lot of robots, but just because that's the lore-friendly weapon. Though a weapon like this will come in handy for, say, getting ready to launch a nuke that might have pre-war robots guarding the nuke switch. So there is always that. And we will find something later on that will amplify the damage this thing can do. But I'll talk about that in a minute. As it is, and bearing in mind that I haven't spec'd into Gunslinger, I'm doing a rifle and shotgun build, even after getting a sneak critical on a robot, with the level 45 version of the weapon, it does okay. But I have weapons that are just better. Now that we have every piece of the Mistress of Mystery regalia, we can now be promoted to Seeker. Back at Riverside Manor, to claim our promotion, we have to log into Kryptos. You have now earned the title of Seeker of Mysteries. As a Seeker, you will work to perfect your skills as you prepare your final test and full acceptance into the Order. Dispensing Seeker rank holotape done. Please listen to the Mistress's message. Backing out, we can load the holotape in our Pip-Boy.
In mastering the tools and techniques of the Mistress, you have earned the rank of Seeker. Your training is almost complete. To become a full member of the Order, a Mistress of Mystery, you must complete a mission worthy of the Mistress herself. Continue to hone your skills. When the time comes, Eve will assign you a Mistress rank mission from the mission board. This will be your final test. When you return, your sisters and I will be proud to welcome you into our ranks.
We need to find out exactly what this mission is. To do so, we can log back into Kryptos using our user account, and then navigate to the mission board. Welcome, Seeker. You may select from the following missions: Pleasant Valley Infiltration. Please review the mission briefing for your instructions. We get another holotape. Backing out, we can listen to our instructions on our Pip-Boy.
This mission is open for volunteers. It may well be a suicide mission. But at this point, I don't know what else to do. There have been 3 ambushes in the past week. 3 more of our sisters killed. The raiders seem to know our every move. We need someone to infiltrate the raider stronghold at Pleasant Valley. Find out how they know about us and our plans. Do whatever you have to do to stop them. And get out alive, if you can. If you make it back, report to me in my office for a full debrief. This may be the most difficult mission I've ever posted, but it's also the most important. The future of the Order of Mysteries depends on your success. Good luck.
So this was the mission that we heard Shannon Rivers in the council room say was optional, that she was going to post on the mission board for volunteers. And no wonder we have to go to Pleasant Valley and infiltrate the very heart of Raider-occupied territory to complete it. But since we find this mission still on the mission board, does that mean that no one ever accepted it? Is this where the sisters, for some reason, stopped working on their missions and ceased to be as an organization? To find out, we can only take up the mantle of the Seeker of Mysteries and fulfill this task ourselves. Perhaps the answer lies at the heart of once Raider-occupied territory at the Pleasant Valley Ski Resort. But sadly, we're out of time today. We'll have to tackle this task in our next episode. I publish many lore videos and live streams each and every week here on my channel, so if you don't want to miss what we'll discover there, be sure to subscribe and to click that bell notification button. I have a shirt shop with completely unique designs you can't find anywhere else. My designs come in a variety of both men's, women's, and children's shirt sizes, and in a wide array of colors. They also come in other products as well, like smartphone cases, pillows, posters, stickers, mugs, prints, etc. So if interested, you can find a link to my shop in the description below, or you can click here. If you like what I do and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming one of my patrons on Patreon or a member here on YouTube. But more than anything, I'm just so glad you're here watching this video with me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon with a brand new video.